So in this video, we are going to be looking at grid versus flexbox. Now, in the previous section, we looked at flexbox as a whole. We looked at all the different container properties. We also looked at some of the other properties that we can use on our items. But today, we're going to be looking at a different type of, layout property, and that is grid. So before we get started, I'm going to give a little introduction to grid and what it actually is. So similar to Flexbox, grid is a display type that's going to allow us to work with our layout and our CSS in a different way. So again, they are both complete alternatives to some of the other layout features that were used in the older times and in other versions of CSS. So what we're going to be doing is, again, in this section, going through, looking at the different types and what we do with grid and how it actually all fits together. So now that we know some of the similarities, let's look at the differences. So although they are both alternatives to our different layouts, what we can actually do is look at how they work at a core level. And although they are completely the same in what they achieve and their core goals, they are completely different in how they work. So first of all, the grid system is a lot more manual. It requires, it doesn't require, but you can control your container in a much easier way. So you can really customize your layout and see how everything fits together with a lot more tools. So one of the main difference is how the grid system focuses on both width and height. So although Flexbox does have some height features, it's mainly focused on the width of flex items in the container, whereas grid is very focused on providing both tools for width and height to create, a grid. And that's really the reason for the name, is because it is more focused on creating a grid, providing tools for columns and rows and all sorts of things that we're going to cover in the next few videos, looking at, some of the tools that we can use in grid and the inherent differences between grid and Flexbox. So I hope that was a really in-depth view at the differences between grid and Flexbox, and we will go through and talk more about them as we go through the section, learning more tools and properties that we can use on our grid. Alright, so I hope that you took a lot from this video, and although you're not really supposed to know anything about how they work, it's good to keep in mind about some of the differences between them and draw your own conclusions about whether you should use grid or Flexbox depending on what type of website or application you are creating. Alright, let's move on.